all of us. So you could just take a look at it. It goes over readmit rates, lengths of stay, your case mix index. For that, I think they're kind of just looking at how well are you putting in some of those things that the quality people are texting us or getting a hold of us of signing, the CHF or toxic metabolic encephalopathy type of things. And then just overall total number of cases that we've all seen. So that's just there for your perusal. And then Kristen, you can advance it whenever.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
So this was something that came up during our last meeting of the HCAP scores regarding hospitalist communication with patients. It's a funny thing because I know all of us feel like we're doing a good job, but for those numbers, I guess the patients who are responding to the surveys occasionally have different thoughts. So one article I actually found was at Rush University. They noticed within their hospitalist group, while all the hospitalists thought they were doing a good job, they were getting pretty low scores from their patients. For them, I think that was also tied to some of their bonuses and reimbursements. So they were really trying to look for a way to just standardize everybody doing a better job. And then they created just a framework, which I'm quickly going to go over. A lot of this seemed pretty straightforward, which they themselves thought as well, but they noticed just going over this with their groups and kind of re-emphasizing everything actually did make significant large impacts in how their scores went up. So I was just going to go over these as well. So the first question, how often did doctors treat you with courtesy and respect? These were things they tried to standardize for all of their physicians. Knock before entering, greet the patient by the name, introduce yourself. One thing I thought was interesting is they also do the same thing we're doing of the face card with all of our faces on. It does look like all the patients have those, so just take a second and point yourself out on it. I think it makes them feel a little bit more of a connection to you, that they can identify you among the many people walking into the room. And then they also use a whiteboard. I myself really haven't used the whiteboard very much, but I guess for things that you're trying to explain to patients, this could be another way of just kind of drawing diagrams if you're trying to explain to someone what heart failure is or something like that. And people seem to respond well to that.
So I just want to put one thing in here about using the whiteboard. The nurses are not good at updating, who the doctor is for the day. So I really try to, while I'm talking to them and I'm saying hi and I'm introducing myself, or when I'm leaving the room, I try to update the whiteboard with my name. And especially if you think they're going to be going home, maybe tomorrow or the next day, or you have some kind of plan about that, I try to put that also, because it has a little dispo in the lower right-hand corner. Just to start to prep them for that. So sorry to interject.
No, that's a good point. That's also actually a really good point, because a lot of times the nurses, in terms of the physician in charge, they just put in the name of whoever put in the initial admitting order. And of course, when you're on overnight, it might be the name of a doctor who never even met the patient. So that's a good thing to just update as well.
Hey, this is Swati. Nisha, thank you so much for doing this. I just wanted to, I know I do nights, so I wanted to just put that perspective of face cards. That's fantastic. So we have a face card with our names, right? So what I actually do is when I go in, I just circle my picture. They know who it is. The family's almost always there. And then I know who I'm signing out to. Like, for example, last time it was Nisha and Tina, I think. So I just kind of said that, hey, these are the two doctors. One of them will certainly take care of you. I will give them a good handout on what's going on, so they know exactly what happened overnight. So the face card, because we're like a small group, just circle the photo of who come on next. Also really helps.
Yeah, Swati, that's a good thing that you're doing, because actually when I pick up patients that you've gone over that with, they find that helpful of like, oh yeah, I was told it was either going to be you or this other doctor. So they are making that connection, and I think they do appreciate it. So I guess, yeah, on your last day on too, if you could just if we could all just take that second, if you know who's going to take over your list, you could just kind of say, it's probably going to be this person coming in tomorrow, and point them out. The other thing is, I know sometimes we interact with patients who bring up some issues that are better dealt with on the outpatient side. And that's this next point of treat every concerned breath as important, explain why you prioritize certain things over others. You could obviously just say like, well, your onychomycosis is an important medical issue right now. Your pneumonia kind of is the more urgent thing that we want to take care of at this point. But certainly, you could discuss that with your primary care doctor, and I'll put that in your instructions too, to discuss that with them. So just kind of acknowledge that they have other things that maybe we aren't directly dealing with at the moment. Look directly at patients while speaking with them, minimize interactions with computer. Obviously, there are certain points in our interactions, especially when we're admitting the patient, that you are using the computer to kind of go over med rec and whatnot with them. Use that when you need to, and when you're not, just kind of step away from the computer. It helps also just sit on that chair that's there. It improves patients' perception of, how much you're interacting with them and caring for them. The other thing I thought was good was involve patients in decision-making process. Sometimes there are obviously certain things it's very clear that, well, you definitely need antibiotics, you definitely need this. But if there are other things that are kind of more peripheral that you could go either way, it's good to just ask the patient what they prefer so they feel like they're involved as well. Open-ended questions, of course. And I think we all probably are trying to do this anyways, but if there's anything specific that's the plan for the day, let the nurse know so they're not confused and telling the patient something different. And that is kind of the main stuff from this. You can go to the next slide. How often did doctors listen carefully to you? I forgot the exact number, but there's some sort of statistic that doctors interrupt patients within the first 5 seconds or something very small of patients talking. So try to kind of go along with them and hear what they're trying to say, and make sure that they feel that they're heard. A lot of times I think they're given that little notepad next to them on the desk that holds their dinner trays and stuff too. You could kind of just point that out to them of, if any questions come up and I'm not here at the exact moment, just write it down on there and we can discuss it later. And I think this other one, sit at the bedside, use social touch to convey empathy. Something as simple as just, maybe while you're about to listen to their lungs, you can just touch their shoulder, or when you're saying goodbye, just touch their shoulder. Literally the touching of the shoulder seems to be something that just demonstrates a little bit more compassion than the only touch being when you're examining them. And you guys can kind of read through the other stuff, but yeah, watch your body language. Don't appear hurried. If someone's calling you while you're in the room, try to just decline the call. Don't obviously check text messages unless there's something urgent going on. So that's kind of the main stuff from this one. And then next slide.
Okay, sorry.
Mm-hmm. How often did doctors explain things in a way you could understand? I know oftentimes while we feel that we are really explaining things in very simple language, sometimes the patients don't see it that way. So if there's some new pathophysiology that you're trying to explain to a patient of what's going on, you can just ask them to repeat back to what their understanding is. Also, while you're examining them, if you hear crackles, you can just make a comment of, oh, it sounds like maybe there's still some fluid in your lungs, or, oh, you're still wheezing. Use diagrams to enhance comprehension. If there's some new diagnosis or training, again, that whiteboard is there for you to use. Explain procedures, tests before they're ordered, follow up on results the same day. This one is, pretty important. If you're going to send someone down for an MRI or a CT, at least chat with them before so they're not surprised or confused on where they're going for imaging. Sometimes also consultants will just kind of text us earlier in the day of, hey, can you order blah, blah, blah on a patient? I know for me that oftentimes happens with Dr. Bott's patients. I try to make a point of at least going myself to let the patient know, because I'm unsure if he actually discussed that with them or if it's just he's chart reviewing and requesting you to order things. So that's pretty important to also, of course, go over the plan for the day with the patients. If there's any family at bedside, same thing, make everyone aware. And that's about it from this Rush University little card they put together. It's things that seem straightforward, but I think just re-emphasizing it and trying to make a concerted effort to do as much as you can of these things really does help the scores, which of course we know are being looked at. All right, and that was it.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Nisha. I think this is great. I'll try to print these out and post them in the office too.
Okay.
There was a couple more reminders that I forgot about. I was wondering if you guys are using that DISPO planning power plan. Yeah, and I kind of forgot about it too the last couple of days I was here. So it's just a reminder. Try it out, use it. It really does help because it gives a heads up to everybody who needs to do their stuff early in the day, the following day. Yeah, you can copy it from my power plan. My favorite.
One thing I noticed is when I'm ordering that, and it's some of these like nursing orders that you're putting in the day before, the nurse taking over the next day had not been aware that that was ordered the day before. You kind of have to remind them the next morning that that's.
Yeah. Well, I think they'll get more used to it too the more we use it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, you know, in all these meetings I've been going to where they talk about the HCAP scores, I guess they added a question to the HCAPs, which is like, did your doctor round at the bedside with the nurse? And if they answer yes to that, then the HCAP scores are like 95%. But if they answer no, then it's much, much lower. So prioritizing trying to get the nurse to the bedside with you could, you know, may help us. And I will say that I haven't gotten our December HCAP scores yet, but I don't think we're going to get any money for HCAPs for July through December, to be honest. So we did kind of dip a little bit. So we do, it'd be, thank you, Nisha, for going over everything. And I think if we just all give it just a tiny bit more focus, we could get that money the rest of the year. Okay, one thing I've been noticing and that I think is a high risk to patient care and also a super irritant to your colleagues here in our group, that when you, if the med list, if the home medication list in Cerner is not updated on admission, it's a huge problem. And I don't think it's getting signed out as like, oh, I didn't do it, I'm so sorry, can you please do it tomorrow? I think if you didn't do it, nobody's passing that along, you know? So it really, the nurses, maybe 1 out of 10 nurses will do it and do it well. The rest of the time, we just need to do it. And that goes for any day you're seeing a patient. If you look at that med list and it needs to be fixed, then try to do it. The things that you need to use to update it, and I mean, sometimes the patient's super reliable. They've got their list and you're like, okay, cool, we're all good. But sometimes, most of the time, they're not super reliable. So you need to be looking to the patient, any kind of papers they have, the patient's family, that outpatient pharmacy link, the outpatient chart, if you have access to it through PAMP or through the dignity positions that we have here, or Community View also in Cerner can get you into like Stanford charts. And then previous admissions, and sometimes you have to have the family just tell them, look, bring the bottles in tomorrow. So if you don't, like, just sign it out. If for some reason you're super busy, you forget, just make it part of your sign out. So I have a lot more slides on this because it's that important to me. So I wanted to make sure that you know, the most important thing is to get the correct list of the patient meds, but also we need to make sure that they're not written as old prescriptions. So this documented medication by history is perfect. You've got the medications, you've got all the dosages, you've got all the routes, and all the frequencies. So this is what we're aiming for. To find that list, you need to go to the order page, just like you're going to put in orders. And at the top there, it says document medication by history. Another important thing on that top is external. Oh, look, I can use a pointer. Look at me, I'm going to use a pointer. Oh my God, I'm getting fancier all the time. Okay. This external prescription history, that's where you can see most pharmacies that fill patients' prescriptions. So when you go into this and another way to get to this document patient history, medications by history, is in this, at the bottom of the list of the orders, like in this little view thing, the bottom, there's this medication history tab. So you can just click on home meds and then it will come up over here too, not in a separate window. And then this is how we don't want it to look. These little prescription bottles, those should all be gone until you're writing prescriptions on discharge.
How do you make them go away?
I'm going to tell you. That is such a great question. Okay. So, like, this is just the same thing I was saying before, you know. Please you can put it in your H&P that you reviewed the meds with the patient, but you don't believe them. Or, you know, that you did everything and it's perfect, you know. And if you haven't done it, you can put that in the H&P too, you know. It wasn't available to me. It needs to be followed up. So this is so another interesting thing just to be able to know that it's here in Cerner, and I think I pointed it out before, but I don't know if I did it this well. If you go to this order page to the bottom of this list on the left, this medication history snapshot is kind of cool because it actually can show you every time that medication history has been updated and it's like a snapshot of it when it was updated that time. So each time you make a change, there is a history there. So one more thing so to get rid of these old prescriptions, the only way to get rid of it in a way that doesn't like make things confusing for the patient is to right click on the prescription and then select complete. So that means the prescription's been filled, it's whatever, it's over, it's done. It doesn't come up as a discontinue taking it. And then you and this is a serious problem in Cerner, but then you have to add it back as a new medication. So it's a pain. The options for that, this is just one more little piece of information. So if you see a med there with a little prescription thing and you're like confused about it and you want to know about it, you can right click on it and go to order information. And then this will come up and it'll tell you who ordered it and when. So like this is a patient in the hospital now, and this is a Norco prescription that they got in December. You know, so you can, sometimes you get like, you know, a Z-Pack from, you know, 2014 is in there. And there have been times where, you know, Duke Nguyen has admitted a patient that's in their med history and he's continued it. So they're starting to Z-Pack. All good? Good. Okay, Joanna, you got to mute yourself. You're right. It does get confusing at the end of the hospitalization, because if anybody's already written prescriptions for the patient, they will come up here in the home medication thing. So, but you know, hopefully this is going to be done more at the beginning. Anyway, to get the new medicines in there that you've already completed that were prescriptions before, there's two options, and this is for adding any medication. You can go to this external prescription history, and you can right click on that. Any med that you want to add in, you can right click on, and then once you right click on it, you can convert it to documented medication. Now, or you can just add it in as a new med, just, you know, plus, and then just like you're putting it in an order. It is very time consuming. I'm not going to debate that. But when you have the prescriptions that stay on there until discharge that are there from the beginning, when the patient gets discharged, if you look at their discharge instructions, it looks like you're giving them a new prescription for that medication, and it is very confusing for them. And especially confusing for them if you tell them to stop medications that they weren't taking. You know, that doesn't give them confidence in the care that they've gotten here. So I really want us to prioritize doing a better job at this. I mean, ideally, the nurses would do it. Ideally, we'd have like a pharmacist in the ER, but that's not the world that we're living in right now. Okay.
People, or do you want to see more people?
I think when you have a super busy night, that obviously, you know, something's got to go. But of course, asking patients about their medications is 100% part of an H&P. Now, if you can only put it in your H&P as being correct and don't update this, that's fine. Sign it out to the next day person, you know? I think that what it is it can't just slide and then nobody says anything to anybody else. We need to all take responsibility for it. But I will say that, you know, what I try to do, and sometimes I forget, I'm not perfect, you know, like I'm not expecting 100%, but I just want to bring this up so you think about it. Like I do try that when I'm with the patient in the room, I get on the computer and I get to that screen, you know, so I can just ask them about it then and do it right then in front of them so that it's in, it's done, it's correct, you know. And if I forget, you know, but I think we just all need to just give it a little bit more of a you know, effort. Just because I feel like I'm seeing it so much more. So,
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Oh, I just, that's totally important. It's just that these are old people that want often in these cases, that want their medications exactly the way they want them, and they're used to taking things certain ways. And if we upset that, it just, they get all in a tizzy, or their caregiver or family member gets all upset about them not getting, you know, whatever it is. It takes a lot of investigative work. You have to look at that external prescription history, and then you have to look at maybe at the community view has been pretty good for that lately too. You know, it'll be, and you'll find the notes from Pamphon Community View if it's not just out there as prescriptions. But a lot of it's old stuff that's been, like old antibiotics, that prescriptions that have been years back, and you can figure out that they're old. But yeah, it takes a lot of work to get rid of all that. Thanks, Kristen. That's totally correct.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the support.
Sorry, one other thing I just wanted to bring up is sometimes by the time you're chatting with patients and family and you're trying to go over the med rec, it's confusing to me that they've said they've already given their list to someone in the ER and they don't have it anymore. And of course, the list in the computer is not updated by anyone. And so I'm not sure what is the purpose of someone in the ER taking their list. It's almost making it harder for us because then they come up without their list. I don't know if we could just chat down there, what is their workflow? And if they are taking a list, what are they doing with it? Because they're not updating and now the patient's just lost their list.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a very good point. And, you know, I am going to make a note of that. And when I go to the next, when I talk to George, I'll talk to George about this. Prescription lists in ER. Because I agree. They tell me that all the time. And I say, well, I always double check it every time. and sure enough, like I end up changing it all the time. Okay. All right. So we only have 10 minutes left apparently, or we're going to have to pay extra to Zoom. So don't worry. We're only going to be 10 more minutes. Okay. So we'll move on to sepsis. Okay. I just got to say that I think this is my own problem, so I wanted to share it with you guys. You know, I don't know if you guys saw the guy who was super sick, septic from like a dog bite, and like got like alcohol withdrawal. Anyway, so when he came in, he was not hypotensive, but his lactate was 4.5, and so he did meet not just severe sepsis, but even though he's not hypotensive, that actually is septic shock. And it's important because it actually increases the mortality, expected mortality. And that's what we're kind of working on, that observed to expected mortality. So I don't know, it's just in case I'm the only one who just forgot this, then you humor me, but just a reminder to everyone. The other thing is that they've started doing like a code sepsis in the ER where they like get the lab to come and like the nurse. It's like an RRT, and they're trying to work out the kinks so that they will be rolling it out on MSO and CSU. So if someone gets septic while they're in-house, there will be more attention and more help on the nursing side to make sure that we meet all the elements of the bundle. This is the tracking tool that they're going to be using, identifying the SIRS criteria, identifying that it is an infection that's thought to be an infection, if they meet for severe sepsis, and then, or if they meet for septic shock. And then once that's done, they'll use these data collection points to make sure that we meet all the times that are required for the various things. This is the sepsis multi-phase power plan. Now, I have made a copy of this in my favorites that you can copy. I got to tell you, I think they're kidding themselves that because we don't admit patients to the ICU, we don't need this multi-phase power plan. It's stupid as shit. But now it's the only sepsis power plan they are doing, and they are tracking whether or not we use a power plan. So what I have done is I have saved a version of this power plan that literally only has the things that apply to us. And so I'll show you that. So you can copy it from my favorites. This is the multi-phase power plan comes up with these three kind of sub-plans. Now you do not have to, you can initiate just one of the sub-plans. So that's what I would want to do, and that's the only one where I checked off anything and saved it was in this resuscitation phase power plan. Now, it's so even if they're coming from the ER, you can order this, and I have changed all the orders and put in the comments to say, if not done in ER. That's what they want us to do, because, the ER has been doing stuff like missing blood cultures and stuff like that. So, and also this will get us used to using it so that, especially if somebody gets septic on the floor, it's really going to be important for us to make all those parts of the bundle, and it's all up to us then. So here it is, and this is what it looks like when you go to order it, when it says, orders for signature. And so this is the sepsis multi-phase resuscitation thing. That's the only one I'm initiating. These other two say initiate now because they're not being initiated. I checked and put the bolus in there, but if you don't need the bolus, if they're just septic and you don't need a bolus, you can just remove that from the power plan. But I checked it and put it in because I put in the comments only if not given in ER. So anyway, just so you know. And then it has the lactic acid and the cultures. But you will have to add the antibiotics. And if it's a patient who hasn't gotten antibiotics in the ER, you need to write them stat so they get them as soon as possible. Any questions about that power plan? All right. So Joelle is coming back. Woohoo! I'm going on vacation, and because of that, Joelle is gonna step kind of back into her role. Lori's last day is tomorrow. I got her a little Valentine and a little plant that she can take home. It's on her desk that she can get tomorrow from us. And then starting Saturday, Joelle will be getting all the phone calls and the faxes and doing the billing remotely from home. So next week, she really won't be here, but she will be available. But for next week, we'll continue to have the doctors do the assignment every day. She's not going to take that on starting next week. So that's all you guys still next week. The following week, starting February 25th, Joelle will start doing the list Monday to Friday only, and we will continue to do it on the weekends forevermore, because Joelle deserves to have a weekend. She shouldn't work 7 days a week. And she will be in the office Monday and Wednesdays to start with, and then adding Fridays in a few weeks. But as usual, when she's not here, she's still very available to us to call her with problems, with issues or whatever. And then beginning in March, she'll probably start coming back to multidisciplinary round. And there's her little munchkin, Jacqueline, having a little tummy time. I just thought that would be fun. I haven't been having problems with IM bills on my phone, but sometimes the whole thing does a meltdown and you have to remove it from your phone and re-download it. So our relationship with the ICU is a little bit of an issue. You know, they all have bugs in their bonnet or bees in their bonnet. And like, I got to tell you, it's a huge issue, their relationship with everyone in the hospital. But you know, we have to just do our part, and kind of to support them. And so, you know, when they're going to the ICU, please make sure you're calling them. Even if it's a Zim patient who has nothing going on, and the Zim patients who go to the ICU after their surgeries are carotid endarterectomies, AAAs, and any kind of lower extremity bypass graft, okay? So, and I guess, you know, that super sick guy who was here, Bravo Godinez, or what the hell his name was, who was super sick and had a million medical problems. Apparently there was no call, you know, to Segal when he came. So when I go to Segal and say, hey, we really want you guys to write up a transfer summary when they come out of the ICU, they have, and this is not just Segal, it's everybody in that group, they've all given me the same feedback. You guys don't even call us when patients are coming. So let's work on our part, and then I will continue to work on them to do this kind of transfer summary, because I gotta say, when they call us, they give us some idea of what the major problems are and what the timeline is. But to read their notes, you cannot dissect that at all from their notes. So I also would like it when you're accepting a patient, even if you're not going to be seeing them the following day, you need to listen to the whole story, and you need to somewhere document the highlights of that story so that the person who's going to see them the next day can put it together and know what are the top 3 points I need to be thinking about here. You know, what were the major things that happened in the ICU? So this can be like a 3-4 sentence thing. You know, sometimes when they call us, they do want to go through like every detail of like, you know, then they need this and then that, da, 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 da. But what I think would be super helpful and that we can do for now for each other is, you know, listen to their whole spiel, but then distill it to a few sentences of like, you know, they got admitted with respiratory failure, probably due to CHF, but they also had MSSA pneumonia, probably. They diarrheased, they were extubated on this time, but then they got super agitated, you know, just some kind of narrative.
Hey,
yes.
Question, going back to the first thing, what is the limitation of Zim just not telling them himself?
Yeah, listen, you know, I don't know what to tell you. They also want to hear from us. It's very irritating. I get it.
Just wondering.
Right. So I have started asking Jessica. When she says, oh, they're having this procedure tomorrow, I started asking, she calls me, I started asking her, are they going to ICU after? You know, so ask her. But like when I asked her, she basically said those are the times that they're going to the ICU. So you have to